Hello and welcome back to the Double Swing. It is time to start talking about things that are serious, real, major. Budapest is right around the corner, and yes, you've seen pick'ems, you've seen a dozen different videos, I'm sure, from different people, all claiming to know what we actually do. So here you are receiving the real update, the real breakdown of exactly how it's going to happen, who's going to be good, who's going to be terrible, and yeah, who's going to make some points. Before we talk about all that and talk to our guest who has given us the pleasure of his company and the privilege of his time, we have to recap what happened last week. Because last week we previewed Blast Rivals Season 2. Again, iconically terrible naming. It went surprisingly well, but in that case, it means it went terribly. Everyone scored points. I got 3 points for my Falcons and Passion USA picks. Yumi, you did get 4 points for your Furia and Spirit picks. And finally, our guest, Nero, managed to get himself another 3 points with his Vitality and Pain picks. Yeah, sometimes the bracket just lines up that way. I was really hoping I'd make some ground, but no, instead I'm still 7 points behind Yumi, who is 3 points behind the guests and viewers. It's a tough climb, but the major, there's a lot of teams to pick, a lot of things can happen, a lot of things can go wrong. We'll see what happens. Robu, you've told us before the show, you've not done your pick'em. Still excited for the major?
Oh, definitely excited. I think it's going to be a great major, especially when we get deeper into the tournament. Not to completely just shit on this first stage, but there's a lot of teams that aren't really on par when you think about the major as a tournament. But I think we're going to be able to dive a bit deeper than those pick'em videos, just 10 minutes of people randomly just selecting teams and being like, oh, they're on good form. I think they will make it through and and whatnot. So I think we're going to able to dive a bit deeper, and I'll be able to pretend that I've watched all the Fluxo, the Huns, and the Red Canids games that they've played throughout this season.
Yeah, well, look, I expect you to be on point when it comes to some of the European teams. I know you are going to be fairly well informed on that stuff. Yumi's usually our Asia guy. I guess we have no Brazil guy on this episode. We could have done with one, but hey, who's got the time? Who's got the time? We'll just pretend we all watched Red Canids play Fluxo the other day in tournament number 7,000 that happens over there. Match. It was a classic match. People got killed, rounds were won, and in the end, I didn't watch it. So, on that note, we're going to start off with the first pick. Yumi, you have been nominated or self-nominated, I don't know what you want to call it, to go first this episode. Who do you like the look of?
Yeah, I was given it very reluctantly a first pick, and I'm just going to go with the one that makes the most sense, one that a team that has at least won a tournament recently. I'm going to go with a favorite and lock in Legacy, who I think pretty much universally across the board when we're looking at these teams in the first stage, this is the first major we have where every team is directly invited as opposed to like doing this qualifier thing that we did for Austin. So the field of team is a little weaker, and Legacy seem to be sort of ramping up at the appropriate moment to sort of make it in, not only sort of breeze through this first stage, but also could go a little deeper than that, which is strange considering, for Austin, they were this replacement team that everyone was thinking like, they're not going to do anything, they'll do no damage, and then they make it to the quarterfinals. So it's nice to see that things have kind of panned out for this Legacy team, because they play a likable version of Counter-Strike. It's none of the frills of overly strategized nonsense. They love going head first. They've got a lot of pieces that have traditionally on older teams been very headstrong, and they actually have a legitimate fragging in-game leader that has surpassed even the likes of Big Uzera in terms of their recent form, where Big Uzera dominated that conversation for a very long time. So this team is very easy to like, and I think Brazil has quite a few teams that over the past few years have kind of donned the torch that Legacy now do. They've taken that, they've ripped it out from Pain's hands, and now Legacy are sort of Pain 2.0 in a certain way.
I think that's a good pick. I think it's a pretty safe pick. I saw them a lot in people's pick'ems as the 3-0 team, and surely that's warranted. They won CS Asia Championship, made to the final of PGL Bucharest, and I don't think they do anything particularly special on the server, and it's not like one guy is carrying them. They frag pretty evenly. They've got a 7-map pool. They're able to flex that possibly in the best of ones here and going into the best of three. So I think there's a lot to like about this team, and their floor is pretty high. I don't think their ceiling is particularly high. I don't see a playoff run or anything like that, but we're in the stage one here. There's a lot of teams that should be easily beatable by Legacy. So I like the pick. I don't think there's any drama here.
Just to quickly add as well, a lot of the recent success was actually fueled by a player that most would have just seen as kind of garbage, actually, for a while. And that's Nissim. Like, genuinely had 2 events back to back where he played far better than he typically does. And I don't know if this is the type of conversation we have to shift into, with him maybe being more of an on-LAN type of guy, because even at Austin stage 1, he also had a very, very good sort of stage 1 into stage 2, and when they get to the main stage, it gets he has a few moments, but it's not nearly as impactful as those earlier stages. So again, they have pieces that are really just powering up in a way.
Yeah, it really feels that way, and I did my pick'em, so check them out. I'm not going to spoil every single pick I made. There could be some surprises. There probably aren't a lot. I'm not really a big fan of a lot of the teams on the lower half of this this sort of spectrum, but Legacy for me are a team where they've got at least 3-0 potential. For me, for a team to be at least reliably able to 3-0, I need to see some strength in depth. I can't have clear flaws, big gaps, or multiple weak links that I think can fail me in a best of one. Nissim has completed essentially their sort of infinity gauntlet of every single player on the team can win me a map. Lux can do it, Lato can do it, Dumao can do it, Nissim we've now seen can do it, and Sadzin, even though for a lot of people, he's been on paper not that great, he can take a CT side over, and in a best of one, when I just, start on the CT side and say Mirage or say a Nuke, he can get me a 17 kill half and that's it. Boom, done. That's 10 rounds, game over. A couple rushes and you're good. So I think Legacy are a must pick in terms of like at least going through. 3-0 really is on the cards for them. They're one of the best teams for that sort of pick, I reckon. And yeah, they have to receive a lot of credit for their momentum coming into this. You say the build-up of Nissim, the players coming online at the right moments, but it's also just the game plan is coming together at the right moments. I mean, we had Ted on one of my live streams recently break down their outer smokes on Nuke. It's not crazy tactical depth. It's not the most insane play, but it's details they're getting right and using them to set up the kinds of players they have in the right ways. They're creating avenues for multiple playmakers to be aggressive, to take space, to actually find these heads-up duels. Legacy may not be famously tactical. They may not be spectacularly meticulous and pick every single team apart. They're not prime Na'Vi, but it's more than effective, and it's also what they need for their team. So yeah, great pick for this exact stage.
Do you guys think Legacy is going to stick around, or is this going to be their very best we're ever going to see from them? Is it a flash in the pan, or do you see them being a consistent top 15 team?
I'm going to be optimistic and say yes, but Yumi, maybe you're more pessimistic than me.
That's kind of what I mean, though, about them taking the torch away from a team like Pain, who seem to be, in a way, sort of not necessarily spiraling. I think the role changes that Pain have recently made have somewhat improved their chances of retaining their position. But I think Legacy have kind of leapfrogged them and taken their spot as sort of this, maybe not a team that can win it, but can always cause an upset type of team as they punch up into the top 10, for example. So I would expect that they stay in the top 15 unless the roster gets picked apart somehow.
Yeah, that's the one question, Can they hold on to the pieces? Our Legacy, whoever, I'm not a behind the scenes guy. I don't know who runs every org, who has what sponsors, who has what money. If Legacy can't hold on to the players, because I'm sure there'll be people sniffing around Lato, Dumao, they have been forever. They've been on 17 different Brazilian projects for a reason. If they can't hold on to those guys, they will inevitably flounder. We've seen other teams when they've had, players picked off, especially in the Brazilian scene with the lack of movement there typically is. It's just hard to rebuild. It's hard to, reliably come back to what you're supposed to be in terms of your place in the rankings, your place in the scene. So if Legacy do lose those key pieces, it'll be tough. As long as they stay as this 5, they should be top 15 for a long time. I don't know about you, Robbie. Are you more pessimistic than the two of us?
Not necessarily. I just can't figure them out completely yet because I don't see that clear star power, which I do want to see from any top 15 team. Sure, they take turns on who's fragging, but I don't really see like who's the guy on this roster. And now I made some Brazilian haters for sure.
We
So
all
be
have
it.
at least a dozen. Every week that we don't literally kneel down at the altar and kiss Fallen's feet, you receive at least 4 or 5 comments. Like, I've had a lot of comments tell me I've not been nice enough, despite, you know, making a case for Fallen to be the GOAT IGL. I'm somehow not flattering enough to this Furious side. So don't worry, those are just par for the course. You're going to acquire at least a dozen a week in the current meta we're in, with Fury on top. But that brings us to you, Robu, as your pick. Like, you've got a fully open field, a lot of big names left to take from.
But can I go for an underdog pick?
You can.
Of course.
Okay, yeah, this is my meta play. I'll explain myself maybe later because I really want to rack up those points. But yeah, I don't see many good underdog teams in this field, so that's why I want to get the best one right from there. I know this team is probably on your list too because they've been very impressive, and it's Parivision, it's James' team. They are, I think, clearly a team that's gonna go through here. I don't see a world where they aren't. They have been. They've been pretty inactive out of all these 16 teams. They are the 4th least active team of the last 3 months. I think they've been maneuvering and just kind of manipulating their VRS standing, not partaking in all of the tournaments that they probably could have been a part of. They've just kept their ranking relatively high. I don't know who's responsible for that, but I think they've got their own Messi also in their org. Just perfecting that side of the game. They've been absolutely dominating the tier 2, tier 3 space they've been playing in, winning almost 80% of their matches. They haven't played many LANs, but the LANs they've played, they've won Majestic, Landalan. Sure, pretty poor level of teams there, but they did beat BetBoom in that final best of five. That's a legit result. They've got great CT sides versus top 50 opponents. I think they have sound setups. Individuals perform on this team. I bet the viewers can't even name who's playing on this team besides J-Man. I can't fault them because they're pretty much nobodies. I looked at the LAN maps they've played. These 4 guys, Belchanok, AW, Zello, Nota, they have 125 maps combined on LAN, and James has 638. So James is the master of this team. I bet he's able to do whatever, tell these guys whatever, rush through this smoke. I'll flash you. I'll close the round. I'll close the 2v2. Whatever the team needs. I think James is able to call it, and this team just believes in James. And somehow they're cooking. Somehow they're looking like really, really solid. And I have a couple of more points, but I'll let you guys also take part of this Parivision conversation.
Yeah, I need to jump in because there's one channel where the viewers better damn know who the hell's on this team. It's this one. You guys can't sub to me and not know who these kids are, because that's all we talk about. Every live stream, there's multiple videos for players. Specifically, there's even a prospect video for Nota from this team. They should know. So if you're a sub, you better know who the hell he's talking about. But yes, they are just a bunch of kids. At the end of the day, it is Jame, Dastan, kids, and a dream. And unfortunately, for everyone else in attendance at this stage, that formula works. You don't need to give Jame elite weapons. You don't need to give him, the Yekendas of the world for him to make runs, for him to be impressive. He's won a major with Fame and Norbert. He's made a major final with Sanji, Buster, and Kickert. Not necessarily always kids, but hell, some people you've never heard of as far as, the major playoffs. He's done it before with nothing, and this time this might be his most talented group of nothing we've ever seen. Like, I was excited for Nota when I watched him. I separately saw Belchanok arrive at a different time and thought, oh, this guy's pretty talented. I've seen Yellow on Gun 5, take over maps, be super aggressive. And I thought, yeah, nice. And now AW may be the one I'm the least excited about in the past, but people have been hyped about him. And I've seen him play some solid enough CS. They're all now on the same roster. Like, they all come from these separate places, been combined here. They've slowly upgraded from basically 27-year-old kind of washed CIS players to this group of fresh, young, aggressive for the most part, and incredibly talented riflers. Yeah, Parivision are nasty. Like, they have that sort of, to go back to the sort of like where they should be picked, they have a 3-0 ceiling. The one problem is they are kids. So there is the chance, there's a part of me that says, hey, 2-3, I wouldn't actually be that surprised. I would be surprised, but not that surprised. Like, my money's on them going through. My money's on them, potentially being a real threat deep into this tournament, just in terms of the firepower they have and who's leading it. But yeah, technically that option's open there. They could bottle it just a little bit. It is a lot of pressure. It is a big deal. It's a lot of eyes, despite all the bollocks with the co-streaming and the Twitch streams not being up. It's going to be on Kick and all this other crap. There'll still be a lot of eyes on this, a lot of pressure. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, for everybody except Jame, it's their first major. So it's really hard to really pin anything too significant on them. So it's hard not to be excited about this team, though, because not only is it a Parivision that, Jame has been characterized as playing like slow, boring Counter-Strike for a long time when he was with Virtus Pro, but that hasn't actually been the case with Parivision. Like, they play pacey, they go with like explosive set pieces, they fish for kills in a way that the old VP never did. And I do wonder if that has really been to do with more the pieces that he had on VP. If you think about Flit and who he was, he came from a Forza who actually played a very slow style of Counter-Strike very traditionally. Think about Fame, that guy was always seen more as a lurker. And the idea that Jame and that crew won a major together was actually fueled by those pieces, those star riflers, actually doing more than they typically did and being far more active and maybe confident in the fights that they were taking in a way that was never replicated again. So it's cool that he's with a bunch of youngsters, because these guys all seem to have that sort of killer instinct, like the drive to find a gap and find a kill. He has those pieces that can be a little bit more free-flowing, and if things get complicated, that's where Jame actually can step in and actually even take over rounds with the AWP, maybe even.
Yeah, in that sense, he's going to be the closer, right? Like, that's kind of his role, Rob, as you described it. Like, he gets to move the pieces. Don't worry, lads. I'll mop this all up.
Yeah, he's got it. And I also like their map pool right now. They have 3 maps that they just aren't losing. Mirage 8-0, Inferno 6-1, Overpass 3-0. Okay, that's not much data on Overpass, but Jame on Overpass, I trust him to get those T sides over the line and scrape through whatever 5 rounds, 4 rounds, and just close things out on the CT side. So I think they're going to be hard to punish on the veto. And also, just individually, Jame he's one of the best AWPers of this stage, which feels a bit funny to say. He's the AWP IGL. That also tells you about the field of the AWPers on this stage. I think you could mention Jumbo, Wrinkle maybe. I guess put some respect on Brokey's name. But on this form, I think Jame is, if not the best AWPer, a top 3 AWPer of this stage. And you could also take this to a larger discussion on AWP IGLing, which I feel like it's out of fashion right now, but I don't think it should be out of fashion considering CS2 and how hard AWPing is. I don't think it's a catastrophe if your AWPer puts up a 1.05 and is the IGL and maybe just hits the easy shots, the 6 out of 10 hard level of shots. I think AWP IGLing could come back in a big way, and that's why I'm also excited to see Cadian joining OG. We're not going to be able to see them in this major, but next year.
Yeah, potentially next year. And yeah, just to wrap up kind of my thoughts on this team, Jame and Dastan have been famous in the past, right, for unique play styles, sort of a different approach to the game that we don't see every team do, in a sort of hyper min-maxy way. This team is no different, despite being incredibly different in the way they do it. It's a lot of really heavy pack play. You've got like 3 different guys or 4 different guys actually on the T side with like 25% of their deaths traded. Like, it's just this sort of weird death ball that trades itself out super well. They don't get a lot of opening kills. They don't actually get a lot of multi-kills on their T side. It's just about getting in the bomb site explosively, quickly, sacrifice a few men, but as long as that bomb's down, teams are going to start saving. At worst, James has to do a bit of clutching. Like, he's got a great number of clutches this year with this team. And that's how they've been maxed, having a lot of guys who are not necessarily, solo players. You can't leave them out on their own to make decisions or do certain like little lurks and plays. Instead, group them up, throw them in there, smash some faces in. Yeah, the new Parivision. Very different Jame and Dastan, but it's still uniquely weird, like in their own sort of little way.
In theory, this is James' meta to to really activate, right? I mean, that's what the AWPer has become on a lot of teams, is sort of supposed to be a closer late round piece as opposed to, you know, some eras of old where it was seen as more of a crowbar in certain senses. So, you know, maybe there's a couple players that can still play hyper aggressive, but this is the meta of like defensive AWPers, and that's what James did best.
I love it. I got this pick in. I can see KingT is a bit mad that I got this Parivision pick.
I think we're both a little, we've both been, we've both been looking at a Parivision for a while. So
I knew as soon as you started, I said you said you want to go to the underdogs. I started shifting the octagon towards you. So I was like, I know he's going Parivision, and I'm kind of mad, but at the same time, it's fair. It's fair. You've been a bit of a sleuth. You've not fallen sort of victim to the favorites, the big flashy names. You know, that big F is right there, but you didn't take the bait. Fair enough. It's a quality little pick. That brings me to my back-to-back picks, and now that my very favorite underdog is gone, let's start throwing some Hail Marys, shall we? I didn't really like the look of a lot of these underdogs, and it's going to get awkward later in the show, I think, to pick between them. So I'll leave it for then. Instead, I'm going to pick Pedigree. I'm going to pick the team with this group, not even the most majors, because we got some real big, like, dynastic orgs in this stage. FaZe Clan deserve a little bit of respect. They're the #1 seed. They're in conversations for the top 10 teams in the world, and yet they're in stage 1. Again, another massive international event, be it the World Cup, be it the major. Europe always disrespected. Like, why do we get like 3 slots whilst all these other little regions get these charity spots? I don't know, but here we are. FaZe are somehow in stage 1. And this is a FaZe with 2 of, on paper, on form, maybe the 10 best riflers right now in the world. How on earth they don't make it through this stage is a mystery to me. Like, it doesn't seem feasible that this FaZe clan can't make it through. I know Brokey gave us some of the genuinely worst CS he's ever played, or any AWPer on a team rated in this sort of ilk has ever produced. It's not going to last. It never does. And if Brokey even returns to his season averages, this team will sweep through this stage. Sure, we've got some confusion about Jacob. Is he good enough? Can he fit? He's also had a very confusing, incomplete patchwork sort of debut group of events where he's playing, he wasn't playing, they're pracking with, they're pracking without. They've had some time to stabilize. Integrate him. He's not an untalented player. That's not going to be the problem. They haven't signed a random bum on word of mouth. He's, not my most exciting young player, but he's not as bad as his numbers have so far indicated. Carrigan as well has had a really rocky year in terms of especially the public opinion about him and his calling. He's still making top placings at events. He's still, over the course of the entire year, put together a more complete resume than you'd expect for a guy who's been a washed-up bum. So this FaZe clan is a little disrespected, a little overlooked. I think this is exactly the kind of event for them to turn it all around and just really destroy some expectations, break some bets, make some unexpected runs. Stage 1 should be no sweat for them. They will have a hiccup. I don't have them 3-0. I don't think that's realistic. They're always going to have a little hiccup, but they're too damn good for this field.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick, even though picking FaZe doesn't feel trendy right now. It doesn't particularly feel good trusting in that 5-man unit. I don't think there's a chance that we'll see this 5-man unit when the calendar year turns into 2026. I think only 2 players are safe on this team, but those 2 players happen to be also the 2 best players of this stage of the major, and I think by a pretty clear margin. Obviously, talking about Twists and Frozen. You can put Frozen first, you can put Twists first. I don't mind, but I think they're the top 2 players of this stage, and I think KingT nailed it in the sense that they're world-class riflers, and it's sort of a travesty that those 2 rifles play in a team that doesn't have a chance of winning the major. Not giving it a 0% chance, but I think there's a lot of quality teams right now in Counter-Strike, and FaZe isn't one of them. And I don't know, it's hard also to quantify this unit because I think we've only seen 15 maps from this 5-man roster playing together. We had Rain coming in for a second there, and now we see Jacob back on the unit, and I don't know. I don't have too much faith in Jacob, but shouldn't be a problem in this stage 1, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely shouldn't be a problem. I guess the way to frame it for me is that, you know, do they even keep Frozen after this year if they bomb out at this stage? That's really, you know, I'd raise some serious alarms if you have Twist and Frozen and they don't make it out of this stage, because one, Twist just signed a contract, so he's kind of locked in for a little bit, but Frozen honestly could just go to another team. And honestly, if they do bomb out, he probably should, if I'm being realistic. So yeah, I also expect them to have maybe one map in a best of one where they'll lose out and then get to the best of threes and things will sort itself out. I do think Jacob has been kind of mischaracterized on this team, unfortunately. You know, this is a guy that played very active positions before on BetClick Apogee and was, you know, fighting mid-floor, con, on like Mirage and Ancient, and was taking a lot of sort of space-creating positions, and is now dedicated to basically like all the anchor and small and big sites, and basically given next to no resources, because FaZe don't have great team play, and they haven't had great team play for a while, but that's what the star element is supposed to be, that people can just sort of do it on their own. It's a rough environment for a rookie. That's all I'll put it down as, because he has more actual pedigree than someone like Brokey did when he first came into the roster, if we're being completely frank. So yes, he will grow, he will develop. It may take a year that FaZe, to be honest, don't have.
That's true. Yeah, that makes me. It's not on Jacob. Like, nothing against the guy, but it's a problem for FaZe for picking this guy. I think Jacob skipped a team here from BetClick Apogee. He should have landed on a, I don't even know, an OG, a heroic type of team, rather than going to a FaZe who's supposed to win championships while they have Twists and Frozen. So nothing against the guy, just the wrong place for him right now.
But I think there's a lot of people that are just going like, oh, but they actually made it quite deep in ESL Pro League with Rain, so why have we brought this bum in? And it's like, yes, I kind of agree, but also it's not his fault. Basically, he's just in this awkward position where he had to sit at ESL Pro League while they were playing and just not play. He was there as like a cheerleader. It was just, I don't know, kind of sad.
Who knows? Miniskirt and some pom-poms. Maybe they thought that was his look. I don't know. It's not really what I envisioned, but FaZe Clan in that sense have had some interesting takes. And you talked about Brokey, about how he had no real reason coming into FaZe. I think a part of FaZe is still in that sort of mindset of like, we took a guy from Epsilon, which was essentially, it would go on to essentially be like an endpoint-like team in terms of being like 50th in the world. It literally had endpoints team at some point, basically. Like guys like Robin, Crucial. They took that guy and won a major eventually. Like, they believe in themselves as far as pickers. Let's put it that way. They'll take the risk. They're willing to do it. Plus, probably not the deepest coffers, so they will take the cheap, risky pick more often than we'd really like for a team with these sorts of players. But I'm happy with this selection. I still think he's going to show us a lot more now with this big gap, this time to integrate. Maybe they do get him a little more active in certain spots, which will suit him. But I need another pick here. And I've got a few different teams in mind. But I'm going to pick the team that seemed to be kind of built to win these sorts of not round robins, but Swiss stages and always surprise everyone. I'm going to take Bait. Bait for me are, in the similar way that I described Legacy, without a real weak piece. Like, sure, we go from, oh my god, NPL could be a tier 1 carry, to Ascenthial's okay, but I don't feel like I truly look at this roster and think, that guy is trash. You know, at worst, I think he's fine. And maybe I could find an upgrade if I really min-maxed, but realistically, this roster has the depth I need to be comfortable going through BO1s, to be happy when I get to BO3s that they can outlast, at worst, some of these other rosters. They have got a bit of a strange sort of style. I will admit, it has frustrated me in the past. As someone who picked up on Kensizor when he was playing on Kono, I really wanted him to be a star on this team and perform. Unfortunately, they've taken him and gone, well, everyone else doesn't want to do the entry work, the aggressive work. Everyone else wants to trade and close. Kensizor, I hope you're okay taking 40+% of our opening attempts. A workload no one else can survive, and which he does, and surprisingly at the end of the day still comes out with a rating over a 1.00, which is just insane. Like, you should not be doing this much grunt work and still produce, and that's what makes me believe. It's like, if they can do that, if they can put literally a mountain of work on one guy's shoulders in terms of the entry load and still deliver wins, clearly there's quality in this team that doesn't quite meet the eye. Clearly I'm not as high on Essential as I should be. I'm not as high on Alex666 as I should be. Hell, maybe Head Trick is even better than I expect, because something about this team shouldn't work. It could all just be NPL and the calling, but they've persisted. And when it comes to this sort of event where you get BO1s, people are going to try and play Mirage, people are going to try and play Inferno. They play a very aggressive style. They're very combative. Yep. It's just going to work. I think they're just going to find a way.
They shifted responsibilities on this
Alex is now calling,
which is cool to see, but it has also kind of changed the dynamic, because it always felt like NPL was kind of leading from the front and actually just devastating teams, but it's almost unsustainable for the rest of the squad. Like, it used to be NPL all the way up here, and then next player there was like a massive like gap or ravine in terms of impact. So I actually like that they've taken that jump. It's almost akin to like 3D Max with the move to Gravity as the caller. It just allows this rifler, and it actually allows the team to maybe be a bit more dynamic and less one-dimensional in a sense, and provide some different looks where they can still refer to the previous playbook, but they also can create some new things as well. So it's, I mean, this Bait team have a lot of punch, but you know, it's sad to see that they have a Head Trick that has not necessarily taken to the same positives that the in-game leadership has, I guess, given to the rest of the squad. Head Trick is suffering, actually. I rarely see maps where he has any significant impact, and you know, you just need more out of an AWPer, but that's the case with quite a few teams in this stage. So
yeah, the AWPing problem, it's also relevant on this team. I don't know what happened really. I watched a lot of Head Trick back in the day when he played in NIP, and was quite hyped up for him. He came through the we play Academy League. He put up some of the best numbers there, but also rifled there. So maybe the AWPing thing just isn't working. He's been trying to force it for quite some time now. The first I don't know, year or maybe 6 months when he joined Bait, I think he looked pretty good, but he's completely lost the plot now. And well, let's jump on to NPL again. He gave a pretty good interview at BGL Bucharest, where he talked about giving up the IGL mantle. He said that it's freed him up a bit to frag, because he does play those good rifler positions and maybe couldn't contribute to the macro quite enough when he IGL'd. So maybe it's good that Alex is leading now, and NPL also said that Alex is more strategic as an IGL than me, so maybe that has brought in some more depth into the Bait playbook. But I think this is a very good pick. I would have also made this Bait pick if you hadn't taken it away from here. They've just played a long time together, have a lot of things to rely upon, and NPL is a stud right now. He puts up good numbers consistently. Again, as with many of these teams, the ceiling, where is it? Could they make it to stage 3? Maybe, but I think they'll at least make it past this stage.
Yeah, stage 3 I think is a pipe dream. They're at stage 2 in Austin, which was already, and I think they end up going down in the 2-2 game in like fairly devastating fashion. Like, it's one of those, they lose to LynnVision on Anubis.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was killer. Like, the fact that they collapsed essentially when it came down to it, because they were, they were in a 2-1 against Furia, unable to close that one out. They go into a LynnVision game again. It's 3 maps. Just the mental, I think, the age, the pressure, all of that stuff. It's always a factor. They just don't have a veteran on this team, so it is always going to be difficult for them once it gets deeper and the opponents get bigger.
It's also just kind of not a surprise, unfortunately, for Bait that they had those crumblings, because it's something that's kind of followed them. Any event where they're deemed a favorite, they've always underperformed versus that expectation somehow. You know, we go from, wow, this team are so good, to why on earth did they play that way from event to event. So it's something that will follow them for a little bit, but hey, it's not the worst place to be. You know, if you're playing winning Counter-Strike and losing, that's an easier problem to fix than playing losing Counter-Strike and winning, because it's far more sustainable if you fix the problem.
Yeah, waiting for that to happen. It's going to be a mentality switch. At some point, it's going to click. They're going to, reach that level of composure that they actually need. Robu, we are back to you. And the board is still pretty open. I mean, a lot of the favorites gone now, obviously, but you need to start making some favorite picks, I think, before you're stuck with, I know who you don't want, but you might end up with them. So, where are you looking?
I'm gonna go with a favorite pick, and I'm only human. I have my weaknesses. I have players that I like that I've been following for some time, and who've left a good mark on me, so to say. So maybe a mistake, maybe my Achilles heel, my man Snappy NIP, my favorite pick. I gotta go with them, and I also like this pick because I think their form has been questionable in the past month or two, but I don't think you should read too much into it. And this is the conversation on form also that people talk about. I watched Ash's, GamerLegion's coach's video, the pick'em video, and he emphasized form a lot. I do trust Ash's word, smart man, smart coach, but I also think that elusive concept might be sometimes given too much value. Form, what does it even mean? Because NIP has been pretty good this year. I think it's been a weird year because they did have to go through all those online qualifiers to start off the year. They played a lot, and I think this took a toll on them. They played so much, and in the past couple of months, they've had their own, I don't want to say issues. Two of the members of the team, I think, had some new kids coming up. How do you phrase that? That was a weird way to phrase that.
They gave birth.
They did. They sure did. And I think Snappy was supposed to miss a tournament. He didn't. Exist did miss one. So just a weird couple of months heading into this major. But I feel like this is their main goal for the whole year. And I also like that they've had a few weeks off the radar now. Nobody really thinking about them. But they have very good pieces. I like their IGL, as I said. I like Sush as an anchor. Wrinkle as an op. Aggressive style. I do enjoy those cave picks on Ancient, for example, that he goes for. The form has been a little bit lackluster as of late, as with most of these opers, funny enough. But Kaspersky also coming in from ends, he's a stud. He's maybe maybe the best aggressive rifler out of these 16 teams. I really enjoy Kaspersky's game. Maybe still a bit raw. He's very young, can go for those bozo deaths and give up some rounds, but is a net positive for sure. So yeah, I do believe in NIP in this stage.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of reasons to believe them if you just followed them throughout this year. I think me and T we also did another program for a while called Counter Stocks, where we basically tried to map the trajectory or try and anticipate whether or not a team would keep growing. And NIP came up all the time because of what they'd essentially done throughout the year. And it is funny that it has to be Snappy that brings NIP back into relevance. The guy that actively complained about how difficult the qualification stages were for Blast tournaments, for example, saying oh, it's too much of a grind, this is so ridiculous, and then he has to go through the entire year just hard grinding to get into VRS. So now this NIP team has good components, it has good pieces, and yes, the last few months have been difficult, but it's hard to say that they shouldn't be one of the better teams coming into this event. Just simply for the reasons you mentioned, Robu. They've got a solid anchor. They've got aggressive riflers that can take the game, and they've got an aggressive AWPer that does actually, I think, have more bozo deaths than actual impact sometimes. But I love that he keeps going for it. I want to see more aggressive AWPers when we have. Essentially at the elite level, we have aggressive AWPers succeeding right now in current day Counter-Strike. That has to be something that I think should bring more attention to that sort of play style again, because it felt like everyone just regressed to let's play defensive, let's play by the numbers because everybody's doing it. If there are teams that are winning right now aggressive, then Wrinkle is a guy that can do that. So yeah, the NIP team just has win conditions, and They don't play like dumb Counter-Strike either, which is I think always going to be a positive as well.
Yeah, smart Counter-Strike, but also on the T side they do like an aggressive sort of poppy style. They have, their nuke, obviously iconically Snappy's map. He's always got a certain sort of tempo that he needs to establish. Like he needs to establish his A hit to really open up his strat book. And we've seen it go wrong when the A hit fails, flops like 3 rounds straight. You're like, we're NIP, how do we, kind of transition into the rest of our game? It gets a bit awkward. But when it works, it's devastating. It's some of the best looking CS as far as like manipulating defenses, throwing out effective fakes. And a lot of their sort of success has been predicated, at least since Kaspersky joined, it's been predicated on Kaspersky. Like he's been fantastic, and a lot of the other players have had a little bit of a slump. Wrinkle being one of them. And as much as we give him credit for the playstyle, I always will. I love an AWPer that plays like he's a star player, not like he's just a guy with a big fancy gun. Like you've got to take hold of the game. You've got to take the game by the scruff of the neck. You've got to try things, and Wrinkle always does, and that's often his downfall. When he's not hitting every single shot, these crazy things he's going for, it looks ridiculous. But when it's working, when he's hitting those shots, they can upset the biggest teams. They can take down anyone if Wrinkle's on. Big if, but at this stage, they're going to be leaning more on their rifle play. They don't need a massive upset, they just need wins. So it's going to be Kaspersky taking all the sort of aggressive setups, the hard entry, but also just the incredibly like manicured sort of opening attempts that they're going to try and build for him. Shush is going to lock things down, and I don't know what Ujux does, but he's just fine on this team. Like, I never really understand his role entirely, but he's just fine, and okay, I can stop hating on him now. Like, I hated the move when they made it. At this point, I'm just like, okay, I guess they found the role for him. It's okay. We can calm down. But initially, it was a bit of a problem. At this point, yeah, they've got their pieces. They know how they're going to win. You know the game plan that they're kind of going to go for. An extra bonus is if Wrinkle activates in this group stage. If Wrinkle plays, his best event of the year in this sort of stage 1, bye-bye. They're going flying through. They're not even going to be like stopping to talk to anyone. It's just going to be boom.
Boom. Yeah, they could go far. Yeah, I had that exact same thought about you, Jerks. Like, yeah, I think there's a reason we didn't mention his name. He's not a problem per se. He's fine. He's okay. But I also can't help but imagine another player at his spot, maybe that closing type of a rifle. This guy could make so many teams better. But imagine a Blame F there. You'd love to see that. I think that would be a pretty good fit. But also to add on to this NIP discussion, they're at rank 36 or 37 in the VRS right now, so they have fallen off quite hard. So yeah. they need a result out of this major, because if not, they're again gonna fall out of the invite cycle when the next invites come up in January. So this major is big for them. They can't fuck up.
Yeah, better get back on the grind if you mess up here.
Yeah, it'll be tough. It'll be a lot to recover from, but hell, they technically have an impressive ceiling. Like they could go pretty far. They could be in stage 3. I think that's a potential for them. But right here, yeah, they should outclass the field. Yumi, you've got back-to-back picks.
I'm gonna just leave with an underdog. I'm gonna start with FlyQuest. This version of FlyQuest does intrigue me, because I've been very critical of FlyQuest in the past, and I think they've actually went from having good strategy but not enough pieces that are willing to execute the plan, to now having a lot of pieces that can execute plans and less strategy, which is a bit of a, they've taken an inverse approach. And, I think the change in leadership to INS has actually, it's taken some time to get some legs underneath them, but, Netic is playing very, very well. And when Netic is playing well, INS is also finding a lot of impact on this team. Let's not forget as well, FlyQuest are a team that traditionally have gone into these majors and actually from the rip usually have a very good opening stage and then fail to win any best of 3s afterwards. So this is the major where I think they finally break past that hurdle. It's been a curse that's followed them. I don't think they have a single major best of 3 win for this core since the core developed from INS Vexite and before it was Liaz. But they have JKS, who's reliable. They have a Regali that can be aggressive, although he will disappear in big stage games. And Netic and Vexite, honestly, they can be just like a firepower duo. Like if the theoretical approach is INS is calling and he can put up like a 1.0 1.05 rating within that bound, like Vexite and Netic will win you the game with that condition, you know, especially if you've got JKS supporting the rear.
Oof. Yeah, don't know about this one, Robu. I mean, we've had a lot of optimistic things to say about a lot of teams. Where do you land on FlyQuest? Like,
they beat 3D Max and Fnatic at Bucharest.
Who hasn't beaten 3D Max? Like, everyone beats 3D Max at some point in the year. If you play them 3 times, you beat them once. That's just a freebie.
Yeah, well, I can't critique any underdog picks here too much because it's
a rough field.
It's a pick your poison type of a field. Yeah, I can see the reasons for picking them. They're also a team that we don't see a lot. They've played the fewest maps in the last 3 months out of this field, 29 maps in the last 3 months, and they're in this weird slot where they don't want to play their domestic competition because that would just hurt their VRS, so they just fly out for a Draculan or a PGL Masters Bucharest or those type of events. And yeah, sure, a couple of good results in those type of tournaments, but I've got some numbers that don't look good. They have the second worst CT side out of a top 50 filter in the last 3 months. So they're, with that filter that I found, 57th out of 58 on the CT side. So the fragging's not working there. 5v4s are also a top, bottom 3 in that same category. So 55 out of 58 in converting 5v4s. A lot of concerning numbers. Sure, when I think about Vexite and majors, there's also a map. There's always a map or two that pops into my mind. In Austin, he had a 2.3 rating against, I don't even remember who, but it was an Ancient. Everything worked for him. I think he got a 40 bomb, but that's an exception to the rule of Vexite. Having this mega high floor, we all see the mechanics. He can be very good, but I don't know. Is it the decision making? But he is very unreliable, and I think Netic also falls into the same category. Oh, I feel bad for being so pessimistic on FlyQuest. They could, obviously, we've talked about this field. They can make it through this. It shouldn't be a big surprise. They're facing Legacy first. That's going to be a tough BO1, but you know, maybe this is Vexite's carry stage.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't feel very positive about FlyQuest right now. And the Vexite map is against Fluxo, so yes, one of his favorite opponents is going to be here. But also a team I expect to not make it through in Fluxo. Like, personally, like that's a weaker roster. No, for me, FlyQuest have been in a terrible state. Like, sure, they've every time they've come to an event, they've picked up a win. Like, they picked up a shocking BO3 win over Legacy when they actually went to London. I think it was in London, like a while ago now, because they've just been basically AFK most of the season. But they picked up a shock win there. Yes, they picked up a win against 3D Max. May I remind you, 3D Max have no flaw. They have many flaws and no flaw. Like, they're just, anyone can beat them. The Fnatic win will count for more in terms of this stage, in terms of people's belief in them. I agree that's a fair thing to take some positives from. But generally, I struggle. Like, JKS is supposed to come in here and be a class above, like, the sort of recruit they'd usually make. Like, he's supposed to be a tier 1 veteran, going to come in, play better than Liaz ever did, and you can argue the decision-making maybe slightly better, like, slightly more polished. Doesn't matter if he doesn't kill anyone, and that's been the problem. He just hasn't been fragging out. Like, since they farmed that Blast Rising Ager event right after he showed up, which, you know, shocker, they could actually get some wins there, but it's been all downhill. It's been pretty catastrophic, and we've returned to a point where I didn't expect them to ever come back to. When they signed Regalia, I was like, oh, cool. They now have a really good, like, talented player, and honestly, seeing some of the rifle play, might be the best rifler on the team at that point. We weren't supposed to stay there. Like, Netic comes in, JKS comes in. How have we returned to the point where I feel like I've got Regali to rely on in terms of can win a duel against top players, and not a lot else? Like, Inns can have a flash. He can have a pop-off crazy map, crazy series even, maybe, and drop these massive numbers, look like he's not IGLing anymore. But most of the time, he looks hard stuck in the IGL role, you know what I mean? He looks like he hasn't DM'd in 3 months. He looks like he's been grinding demos, trying to find strats. They've kind of lost some of the threat that they had on the rifles, at least in theory, when they made these signings. I'm not very big on them. Again, the door's open for them. You know, in terms of the matchups, in terms of BO1s, you know, they're facing Legacy in a BO1. they're facing Legacy in a BO3 right now with the current way Legacy have like been playing. You'd say they haven't got a chance in hell. But BO1, we've seen that the talentless roster is very well hidden, but exists. We've seen the flashes before, as we mentioned, that ridiculous pop-off out of Vexite at the last major. That was then followed by a 1.7 rated Fnatic BO1. Like, they have these talented individuals, just very rarely comes to the fore. So, yes, not impossible. The door's open, but it's a crack. And for me, I don't see this team slipping through it.
Yeah, I mean, they just... I have to think about what I see and what I know the players are capable of. I understand FlyQuest looks shit. I've been their biggest critic for a while. But even in the move to In's IGLing, I didn't have a lot of belief in it. I actually thought Dexter probably should have stayed on the team. They should have just kicked Ins, if I'm being realistic. But this is a FlyQuest that, in theory, with all the firepower they have, actually they can beat a top 5 team on that day where everybody is there.
Sure, if Vexite pops off and Fnatic pops off and Regali plays like Regali and he's not in the bright lights, like,
maybe not this current top 5 because, you know, in previous iterations of FlyQuest, they have actually beaten some of those teams in like best of ones, or, you know, they've at least brought them very, very close in those games. They have the capacity to win. The essential problem has been like either mental barriers or bad interplay. Like, when you would see these guys at majors, they just wouldn't go for entries. They would they wouldn't take risks. They would just let the round die before their own eyes a lot. So that's something that has to change, has to fix, because I've said it before, if this FlyQuest doesn't succeed, then this project has failed. Like, you bring in JKS, it's supposed to improve the roster. If you've brought... Inz has been the best Oceanic player for a very long time. If you have Inz and JKS on the same roster and it doesn't work, hell, you've got a Netic that's also, you know, ramping up legitimate star in the Oceanic region. You've absorbed as many stars as you possibly can from the Oceanic region. If this doesn't work, I'm not sure what will.
Oof, if I FlyQuest
European import.
Yeah. It's just do as you do in all the other games of FlyQuest. Europeans, Americans, I mean Koreans maybe not, but you know, just not Oceanic players.
They've stayed maybe too true to the Oceanic region here.
Yeah, that's a limiting factor, to be real. We'll see what comes out of it, but I'm not that optimistic. YouM3, you've got another pick. You could take favorite, you could take an underdog. You've got both available to you. Which one would you prefer?
Right, I'm just gonna pick this one kind of for the vibes, if I'm being completely honest. And I'm feeling like maybe this major needs a bit of energy. I'm going NRG.
Oh.
They have beaten they've beaten M80, they've beaten Seoul.
They've beaten NIP?
They have beaten NIP. Now that was also during the NIP. I swear that was around the same period, wasn't it? Around the births, or was that not? Was that a month before?
It's a bit before. I think they started becoming a real distraction. Let's put it that way. A little bit later, yes. But it's approaching that period. It's already on their minds. Let's put it that way.
Hey, anyway, again, I'm not exactly picking it for the most logical reasons.
Right.
Aside from, I like Bro, I like Sonic, and this team has also been winning. So that's my analysis. That's what I'm bringing to the table. I'm going with NRG in the underdog category.
I like it. I've always had this weird NA bias. I don't know why, but I've always vibed with the NA teams. You got Nitro here IGLing. Oh, we remember that Liquid Grand Slam run. And I think also Bro made a great career choice going into NRG. Probably monetarily, it's been a good move. But also, I don't think he had a great place in EU. I don't know what team he could have joined after Australia. So he's fragging a lot in NA. Sure, a lot of people are. That doesn't necessarily transfer onto majors when you face better opponents. But there's pieces that I like. Yeah, Sonic, Nitro IGL, I think he's solid there. This Zodic guy, he's a Roper, right? I haven't seen a single game from him, but I'm kind of excited to see if he can hang here. Probably not a 24-year-old talent, so not a teenager. Probably didn't come out of nowhere. Been grinding counter for a while now, but Yeah.
Just,
Do you have
just to
any more
interrupt,
info
just to
on it?
interrupt very quickly, there's a reason you wouldn't have seen too much of Exotic. Is that even the NA players hadn't really seen too much of Exotic on LAN for a long time. This is
Yeah,
this is a guy
famous
that
land dodger, wasn't he?
yeah, no one knew what he looked like, and it's like, wait, he's showing up to a LAN, and he's actually pretty good. Like, wait a second, he's beating the allegations.
The Joels of USA.
Yes, but actually,
somebody
legit,
remembers
maybe.
that name.
No, Joel's would
yeah,
have said, right, not Joel the Swede. Joel's the Finn,
Joel's,
right?
yeah,
indeed. Yeah. Not much to add on to that. I like this pick, and I think the explanation and the reasoning of just going with the vibes is pretty true here, because you can't maybe find too many logical reasons. They've been good in their scene. That you can say that.
Yeah, I can. Well, I'm amused because I can literally, over the last sort of 3 months, pick a 5-game sort of spell where they play 5 teams from this stage, and they go 2 and 3. Like, it literally is. Like, they have wins over NIP and M80, losses to Fluxo Legacy GamerLegion. When they played, the Pro League Stage 1, they went 0-3. One of the better 0-3 runs you'll see out of a team that goes 0-3 in a Swiss, but still 0-3. They managed to get a map off Legacy, and that's about it. NRG, for me, they're not going far. I don't have them really as a threatening team. I know the temptation's there. Like, especially after that M80 win. Like, I saw that frag Ultra Mega Jersey result and immediately went, oh, maybe my confidence in M80 should be a little shooketh. And then I remembered this event is how close to the major? Like, we're talking 3 weeks removed at most. This is an event that's going to be overlooked. Like, this is not where my stock is going to be sort of really decided. Like, I'm not going to buy and sell on the basis of Fragadelphia. I've seen too much out of M80 to believe this is their level. I've seen too little out of NRG to believe this is their level. I think it's great they've found success, at least domestically, and at least at these sort of smaller lands, with players like George and Exotic, with domestic players. Sorry, Zotic, should I say. If I'm going to call Zershan, I'm going to call him Zotic too. They are succeeding in those sorts of fields. Like, they're getting play and wins out of players that otherwise would just be considered online farmers, nothing. It's like, oh, maybe talents one day, but they're not going to play real lands against real EU teams. No, they're going to, at this rate, probably qualify for a lot more events. And it's going to be a nice story. We'll see how the development goes. Bro's been playing pretty well, all that good stuff. I just think this event, they don't have the depth of talent, the gameplay, like the style, the calling, anything really to keep pace with this opposition. I think NRG are a bit of a... I don't know if an 0-3 pick would be valid. I think that's a bit harsh. But they are going to be, for me, in that sort of category. I just don't see it.
I think what is just promising, though, is, I'm kind of similar to Robu in that, maybe the idea that Bro has made a good career choice here, like, that to me is, like, alluring. Sonic as well, kind of looking better since his slow decline on Wildcard. That to me is alluring in terms of belief that this NRG team could do it, especially now that they've had some of those upset wins and a LAN win under their belt as well. Like, for me, that's compelling enough that I could see a world where they actually make it out of this stage or impress in a way that people don't foresee. Because I was actually half debating at times, going like, who are my 0-3 teams for this stage? And the temptation was there. I saw the NRG brand and just thought, yeah, that team could go 0-3. I'm not picking an Asian team, but...
Yeah, KingT, you made some good points, but you need to vibe more. You need to vibe more. Rock, flag, and eagle. You need to believe.
Yeah,
It's not about thinking or logic. It's about feeling.
I've never been like that. Everyone always tells me they love the North American teams, and I know why. They're fluent in the lingua franca of the scene. They seem charming and nice. Realistically,
they are the underdogs of this scene.
They're the underdogs of the scene because they've just been bad, like, outright, and that's for me always just the reality of it. I don't feel like that sort of affection for them that everyone else does.
Yeah. They've been bad, whether intentionally or not.
Yes, indeed. Robu, we're back to you. You have also got places to go. You can go favorite, you can go underdog. What do you like the look of?
Yeah, this is where the show becomes maybe fun for the viewers and starts to suck for me because not that many good choices. But I think in the favorite category, there's a lot to go on, and I could go with. I went with my heart on the last one on NIP, so let's get some logic in here. GamerLegion, they're the most ranked 16 team in the world ever. Like, they're always there. They're never gonna fall off. Not gonna climb too much higher, but they're safely there. And in this field, that's pretty great. Honestly, there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about with this team. They've also had some troubles lately. It hasn't been all flowers and honey and whatnot. Not great results necessarily, but they're also one of the few teams here who just play against the best opposition, or some of the best opposition in the world, where there's a lot of teams who play against their domestic rivals. So I think that's where GamerLegion's just the consistency, the experience against good teams, and being familiar with the environment of playing in majors is gonna be an edge for them. And yeah, as I said, it's been a couple of weird months for them. Rez and PR have fallen off a little, and somehow Towson, how do you say that?
We call him Towson usually.
Yeah.
We know who you mean.
I'll go with Towson. Yeah, he plays the dog roles, so to say, on the team, but he's also been their best player. That kind of jumped at me. I don't know where that has come from, but it's cool to see. And one more nice thing to always talk about with GamerLegion, their opening decisions and opening situations just need to be studied. You could write a nice essay about that. They're able to pick out great rifle talents, PR, Flamus, Ima, all those guys, but they've never had a good AWPer. And funnily enough, out of their last 3 AWPers, well, Slend got kicked a while ago, but I think Slend is the best out of the bunch. They went with Kersey for a while now with Hypex, and I think Hypex and Kersey, it's a wash. You could pick whoever, and they've been on a similar level. So I don't know who's picking out the AWPers, but maybe they need a new scout on that department. It's hard to pick out good AWPing talents right now, and even some lesser known names are very expensive. They can be like hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy out, even if somebody shows a little bit of talent in a tier 3 team somewhere around the world. So it's not necessarily easy to pick out an AWPer, but that's for sure a problem on this roster. And I think Hypex is a bottom 5 AWPer in this field. But still, I think GamerLegion has what they need to get out of this field easily.
It didn't matter, did it, in the past? When they had their upset runs, they had these wins. Didn't matter their AWP was a bum. Like, we always saw them get the upset win anyway. They always got the deep run anyway. It didn't matter that, Kersey's a 0.95. They still beat some big teams, still made some top placements. It's hilarious, though, to see the downslide. We start at Slend, if you just look at their roster, because they're both still benched to the other AWPers they've had. So 1.04, 0.95, currently on the roster, 0.92. You're like, oh, God, it's only getting worse. Who's AWPing for the next? Me? Like, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to keep the trend up, I can AWP for you guys. Like, I can also do nothing. It's tragic, but it's not their win con, is it? Yumi, we've said this before. We've talked about them a lot. GamerLegion are going to win games off the back of their rifle core, their calling, their strats, their structure, all that other stuff, before we even start worrying about the AWPer.
That's the thing though, as well, is that like when you're winning rounds off of your strats, typically the AWPer is the least involved. You're not. Yeah. He's the one throwing flashes. He's the one getting a trade, maybe late into a site hit, and maybe an after plant. But you don't necessarily need your AWPer to perform. So the numbers don't tell the full story necessarily. But this is ever since Acor had that generational run with GamerLegion for the Paris Major, every AWPer has kind of sucked, unfortunately, for GamerLegion. And I don't know how they fix that problem, because again, they're not the only team. AWPers are very short in supply in terms of who is actually going to be good. Grix and Molodoy were the ones, and I don't know whether they were in the conversation to have Grix or not.
Not sure about Grix, but they certainly wanted Molodoy. We know that. So in terms of their scouting department, you can't say they're terrible. They tried. They just didn't have clearly the capital to back it up.
Yeah, they don't necessarily have the same pulling power. But the rifling core on this team is very good. Regardless of whether or not you want to think PR and Rez have had a bit of a downturn, I don't disagree. To think that in theory the third worst rifler or the third best rifler on that core is Towson is quite electrifying to me, because he's the one that's really been the real surprise. I don't think anybody really thought Towson was going to be a good piece or a good fit, and he's just been he almost always subverts expectations. So yeah, I don't think GamerLegion have done a bad job scouting, if I'm going to be honest. Like, if I'm being real, Jacob and Hypex actually were in the conversation. Like, that Apogee team were winning quite a lot of games in Tier 2, Tier 3, and a lot of it was because of those two pieces. So I don't know if it's just about whether or not they don't know how to utilize the AWP in a way that they feel comfortable, these AWPers feel comfortable with, or what. But yeah, the riflers will get you there with GamerLegion most of the time.
Yeah, if you want to make a defense, actually, I'm going to quickly do this. A quick defense of Hypex. Because we have a very split scene right now in terms of AWPers. We have this incredible Elite Four who are thrilling, bombastic, win every event, are in the top fours, grand finals, matching up with each other. Honestly, just doing cool shit. Then there's everyone else. There's just this chasm, and then everyone else. I mean, Walk6 trying to make a case for himself. It's a shame he can't do anything but AWP. And then everyone else is just kind of dreadful. If you take a comparison, Skybox Edge, shout out. They have a very simple system you can use where you compare players to certain teams. And on those teams, they'll compare the roles they play head-to-head. So you can essentially compare AWPers to different groups of AWPers. When you compare Hypex to the top 5 teams right now, or the top teams with the top AWPers, sure, he looks like nothing. He looks awful. Like, his full buy stats are like a full step below. When you compare him to some of the teams in the next stage, in stage 2, and who they have AWPing and playing those roles, is right on par / a little better in a buy round with an AWP. It's just a question of, should we expect that much more from a guy who is throwing flashbangs on a team that's rifle heavy to suddenly be dominating to a level we don't see out of anyone at this point with the AWP who's not in that top 4. It's a real sort of it's a real difficulty for me to really completely blame him when I compare him to what is actually his peer group, and everyone's kind of washed. It's just his looks so much worse because he can't do it with a rifle in quite the same way. He's not quite as comfortable, I guess, playing against tier 1 to tier 1.5 riflers. Like, with the AWP in his hands in a proper round, he's fine for the comp. It's just the rest of his game that's wanted.
Yeah, I think the whole AWPing discussion is very interesting. I think you nailed it on the head there. That there's the four best AWPers, and then there's everyone else. And even when people critique Wonderful, it's like, who else would you get there, because he's pretty good, he's pretty reliable there. But yeah, Navi not playing on this stage yet. Also, I think worth mentioning the whole discussion around GamerLegion and 100 Thieves possibly being interested in buying their core.
Yeah.
Do you make anything out of that?
Massive. I mean, I make a lot out of it. I mean, if 100 Thieves sign the good trio out of this team, because we've got the rumor it Reigns the IGL, so that means you don't want to sign ZTR. We've got a rumor that Nikodos is joining on the AWP, means you don't want to sign Hypex. That means they'd have to be getting the core of Rez, PR, Towson. If they do, I'm getting a 100 Thieves jersey. You know what I mean? Like, that's a team right there. If they don't, be a bit weird. It would just be a bit weird. Because if I'm GamerLegion especially, how many times can I let everyone go and have to rebuild from nothing? That I'm letting PR go? Like, if I'm charging them $2 million, give me all of your new betting sponsors' money, fine. But otherwise, it's just a rough scenario for GamerLegion, again, having to go back down to the doldrums, essentially.
It would essentially be an exit plan. Like, if GamerLegion make this move, I don't think
go back
they
to being
do
Swedish. They just go pick up 5 Swedish players, take a risk on Snow, which no one's heard of, but a few people who watch Monday's show will.
I'm fairly certain they're just going to exit. If this actually does come to be, I don't see it happening. GamerLegion also axed their academy not too long ago, and partially that was due to funding limitations.
Did you also see ESC getting bought out?
Yeah.
Could that be GamerLegion's new core there?
Not a chance in hell. They bought the coach. Like, the coach is going with them. Like, technically the assistant coach from the old team is now the coach of this team in transition. A full 5 as well. That's such a massive downstep in terms of VRS. I think is almost impossible. Unless 100 Thieves have also bought Ash, there's no chance. There's no chance.
That's what I would assume would happen. Like, what do you think? 100 Thieves buy the core and don't bring the coach too?
Yeah, maybe, but I just don't see them sticking around with this ESC team. Like,
Okay.
that just doesn't seem realistic to me. I think there's a much better chance they trust themselves, they back themselves, they go back into European tier 2, 3, sort of realms. They take a look at some of these up-and-coming Swedish teams and Swedish talents, because they do a damn good job of showcasing themselves with all the Swedish Cups and Swedish lands, and either pick some teams apart or just go pick up one of the rosters entirely and, wait for a bit. There's a lot of time to wait when you have $2 million burning a hole in your pocket. You can take your time.
Also, another conversation I have, if Nikodos is going to go to that team, would you take Hades or Nikodos for that roster? Because I currently lean Hades.
Yeah.
I take Nikodos on meta. On the meta we're in, I take Nikodos. You telling me my rifle on the T side will sometimes just AK for like 10 rounds out of 12? You want Hades? No. I'd rather have Nikodos for that. In terms of the meta we're in, give me Nikodos. I understand the reservations people have around Nikodos. Right there. I'm in front of the picket line with a sign being like, bum. But current meta, no, he's not a bum. He's actually kind of good because he can rifle very proficiently. He can AWP well enough in terms of like the CT side's what you need. I think he's the better option than Hades. I mean, Hades, I still like the guy on the AWP. But do I want to feed him the AWP the way I feed Molodor the AWP on Furia? Lord, no. He's not that good. And it's kind of what I have to do when I consider the fact that I don't think his rifling's good enough. So, no, my pick in meta is Nikodos. With that being said, on that bombshell, back to me and back-to-back picks again. I need to pick both of my underdogs. Now, Yumi, you're familiar with this part of the show. This is the part where KingT has dug himself into one hell of a hole. He has to spin some yarns, convince the world that these picks are genuinely who he wanted all along. Now, watch and learn. Asia is a scene famous for never really flopping at majors. Like, they're not going to win a lot of them, or haven't won any of them yet. But at the same time, if you put a Mongolian team 0-3, people are going to laugh you out the room. That video, I'm disliking it straight away because I know you're wrong ahead of time. And in that sense, I think taking the Huns as an underdog is more than worth it. It's a deep outside pull. You know what I mean? This man shooting from Curry range, they'd say. Post a meme in the comments if you could post pictures of just Curry on the moon, just shooting at the earth. But that's who the Huns are. And they're going to probably do it. They're going to take a win or 3. They're going to upset people. And the BO1s, you're telling me there's multiple teams who'll be able to resist the Score Cobra Zero duo? I don't think there is. I think they genuinely have some talented pieces that are going to terrify and upset people. Sure, their run of results, not that thrilling, not that interesting. Best of 3 losses to Virtus Pro, Rare Atom, who are in this stage. But I'm taking a pick here on belief, a pick on talent. I was always a big fan of Score before he got cut from the Mongols. I thought he was actually a pretty damn good rifler. Probably a part of that was that he was too experienced, too entrenched, too much of a star for what Mongols were trying to build. But for this stage, when I need a guy who believes himself is going to reliably deliver, I want to give that sort of credit to Score. When I see Cobra Zero's POVs, I'm like, damn. I forgot how filthy they make them out in Mongolia. That is just nasty. Give me more of that. I think the Huns are going to be a shock upset team in this stage. Will they make it through? I mean, probably not. I think the favourites are quite actually like well set in this event. Like for me, I'd swap Parivision with maybe one of the other ones towards the bottom half of that group to see potentially being like favoured. But I think the Huns are as good a team as any for making that 2-3. Like to be in 2-2 game with a chance to just slip through. I think the Huns have as good a chance, if not better, than like an NRG. Than other teams from other scenes that are famously just choking at majors. Mongolians just seem to want it. They seem to just show up, ball out, frag out. The Huns are going to surprise you.
Now, I don't know about you, Robu, but this sounds like a vibes pick to me, to be honest. Like, he said he was against the vibes picks. This feels like a vibe.
I'm against the NA vibes. The NA vibes do not fool me. Get your beach bum, blonde hair, all that crap out of here. Like, I don't care about these pretty boys. Give me the guys from the yurts, man. The yurts are my vibe. Is this my vibe?
It also sounds like you watched the Sell Me This Pen clip out of Wolf of Wall Street. because you almost make it sound convincing. You almost sold me the Huns, but then
That's what I do.
but I have to live in the real world for a while, even though KingT's paradise where the Huns make it through is a pretty fun one. I mentioned this in the intro of the show. Obviously, I have watched all of the Huns season. I've grinded through their demos, watched each individual POVs very, very carefully. No, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know much about this team, and that could be maybe their virtue. Maybe that could be the positive element here, because I, just for fun, while you were making this sell me this Huns, sell me this pen speech there, I went through the simulator just picking like whatever the favorites win the first round, and I looked at who would the Huns get after losing to Parivision. Obviously, it could be NRG, a team type like an NRG. That's where I kind of like the Huns and really don't trust NRG that much. So in that sense, yeah. But if we're gonna have to think about making it through this stage, that's a whole different story than picking out one best of one win.
Sure. Let me try and characterize the Huns for you guys. Imagine the Bad News Eagles when they were trying to be a tactical team. When they brought in Devil Walk and they were trying to bring in strats, it's like you've got good pieces that can be good firepower. If you just lean into that, it can get you pretty far. But if you do something weirdly in the middle, it just looks kind of shit and messy. That is kind of the Huns. Like they have good pieces like Score, Cobra Zero, Zeralt. You know, Nine can have his moments as well, even from in-game leading, even, you know, as this old guy now on the roster.
There's an AWP IGL as well. As we all know,
Yeah.
Robbie, we agree, we're on the same page. The AWP IGL's the thing. It's coming back.
It's just when they try and do set pieces, like, oh god, watching these guys play like Ancient or Dust 2 or Mirage, like going for like mid-control, standard lane util, blah, blah, blah. They set up for a late round hit, and it's just a catastrophe. There's no tempo. There's no punch. The pieces that look so good, they'll have like 3 rounds between them sometimes, and then the rest of the rounds that they get are usually because of the economy. They're just not there, unfortunately. Like I do think there's talent on this roster. If the Mongols, after the major circuit is concluded and say Senzu doesn't come back, they are picking up somebody from the Huns. If they don't pick up someone from the Huns, I'd be very, very surprised. So, you know, that's just kind of where I'm at with this team. Unfortunately, I've watched all of them on all these different rosters before, because yeah, Asia is my region predominantly. Like this Huns is much better than some of those teams before, but not by any significant scale, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know that the hard sell here for me is to pitch the Huns to you. But the fact that I got Robu this close, I got him this close. I'm believing.
You almost had me.
It's just crazy enough to work.
I should have thrown in the 9 AWP IGL thing. Like that would have really sold it, I think, in the big pitch.
I'll put it this way as well. Like the Chinggis Warriors last major were worse than this Huns. Like anybody that had any vague reason to believe in the Chinggis Warriors last major, they should have more belief in the Huns this time around, because they are a better team. But you know, they're not they're not like great, unfortunately.
Yeah, this Huns team being in the major is almost one of those things that makes me kind of mad that the major format is what it is, because I have my biases. I'd love to see an OG. I'd like to see an ENCE here, but yeah, they have to go through the EU gauntlet. And talking about Chinggis Warriors, just looking at how the Huns have racked up their points, I think 25% of their points have come by just farming Chinggis Warriors. So, I mean, good for them. Good for them. They make it to the major, get their stickers.
The Chinggis Warriors can't be all too bad, because Controles, he's looking pretty good.
Yeah, well, had a whole fucking segment on that on Monday. It's like, oh lord, yes, the numbers are okay, but lord, are they trying really hard to make him better than he is? They're really trying.
And just on a final point,
Sure.
like Fluxo, Imperial, Red Ken, like that. Those are some of the field that we have in the underdog category. Those are also winnable games for a team like the Huns. They genuinely all are.
Yeah, but I still have to pick one of them again. I'm back down here in the doldrums. And, well, let's see. I know who I'm going to pick. I'm going to write it in the timestamp already. I'm going to look at these. I'm now going to pretend, right, I've got to make a real tough choice. Like Fluxo, you know, with a man who was a world-beating, team-leading IGL, took a roster well into the stratosphere, as it were, when he was on Furia. Do I believe in them? Or Rare Atom, you know, Asia, can't go 0-3. You know, they have beaten my other underdog not too long ago. I mean, sure, they also lost them in the exact same event. Like the match before, it was a weird, like a lower bracket, upper bracket thing. But hey, maybe they could do it. And Red Canids, I mean, they finally got rid of that ridiculously bad player. He's got no real standing, no real history. Cold Zero, I mean, I think he's copying some players' nicknames there. Cobra Zero, Venom Zero, clearly far bigger names. But yeah, they got rid of him. He was clearly terrible. Maybe they've got a chance. Realistically, though, I'm going to try something. Imperial are frustrating. For me, they have like a genuinely talented AWPer. And I watch him play, and he's actually got an AWP, and they get to, you know, play a round where he's not flashed or 1v5 because they tried to execute. I think that's what they call it. It doesn't look like it. When he actually has a chance to play Counter-Strike on this team, Try is fantastic. He looks like, honestly, he could be on a top team, not just a decent team, a top team. Try is fantastic. But the roster as a whole has just gone, like, it takes like stride to stride, like level to level of terrible over the last sort of year that I didn't think was possible. Like, they were at a decent place even 6 months ago, but the Cello edition, the Skulls edition, I mean, even the Sure edition, which was an attempt, I guess, it's been disaster after disaster. And players that we used to say, you know, we kind of had some excitement for, you know, like, no way. Like, there was a moment where it's like, oh, can this guy who's supposed to be a streamer, like, actually make it? Like, he was looking solid on this roster. Everything seems to have fallen apart, and the luster of the Vinny IGL also just doesn't really exist anymore. All that being said, the constituent pieces on this roster could still make a solid Counter-Strike team. We've seen Skulls play better than this. We've seen Cello play marginally better than this. We've seen Try beat big opponents. We've seen No Way play at a real event against real opposition and actually be somewhat impressive. We've seen Vinny lead cohesive and successful T-sides. It's all been there before. So in this field of, well, misfits, I guess for me, losers in terms of this stage, if I had to pick one to really surprise me, like that would defy the odds and play like a sum of their parts that just simply hasn't been seen yet, I would take that risk on Imperial. Not a big fan of it. I'm not loving it. It is a little bit informed by my Try affection. But I have to take the shot. It's a moonshot no matter who I pick out of these four. Hell, it's a moonshot whoever I picked out of the last five. But I'm going to give the edge to the player I like the most.
Yeah, it's an interesting bunch. They do have some names. It's interesting also that they've also played their best Counter-Strike, or their best Counter-Strike is in their rear view mirror. As for now, could they get there as a unit? Maybe. Also, Try is a fascinating prospect for me because he's one of these players. Whenever you look at the HLTV rankings and the filters, he's always up there. But then you dig a bit deeper, and it's just farming regional competition. And in the last 6 months against top 30 teams, 1.03, very average. Maybe being over 1 is good in this opening meta that we are in right now. So maybe you've got a point there, KingT.
It's also 20 maps with a team that definitely lost 19 of those maps. You know what I mean? Like they've just not had a good run of it.
Yeah, I suppose it's hard to put numbers in a losing team. There's an interesting map also there. They're pretty good on overpass, 9-3. So that could be a trap for some teams, maybe in the best of ones. It would be a huge mistake to let them get to that map, but I don't see that happening too many times.
Yeah, I think in terms of, if we're going to have this argument or conversation about form coming into the major, Imperial might be actually the worst of these South American teams in terms of form coming into stage one.
We don't have to talk about Circuit X Retake Sao Paulo. We don't have to talk about that.
No, but in terms of the teams you had to select from, like Fluxo, form-wise, might be the best, most pragmatic choice.
Yeah, but
Imperial might be the worst of them, but that doesn't mean anything when we start going into international waters, really.
yeah,
So.
I mean, Imperial's the only one with international play in that sort of form category,
Yeah.
right? They played Thunderpick and they lost to Na'Vi, and I was like, they took a map. I'm not too shocked. I'm actually kind of happy. Then they lost to Venom. I was like, okay, never mind. Imperial do it again in terms of their international appearances, but at least they've made it there. And sure, they have, they've losses to MIBR, they've lost to Fluxo and Circuit X, which again is it's a thing now in Brazil. I see it pop up all the time. Yeah, form-wise, you're right. But when we had the conversation internationally, obviously, it's a very different ballgame.
It's also, I don't disagree with viewing it from the lens of like player capacity and what they can actually do on this roster, because Imperial do have like a fairly stacked bunch, and I think it's nice as well that Cello, since entering the team, he is putting up better numbers, but it's also because he's not playing like giga hard entry self-sacrificial like he was on Furia. Like he is actually playing roles that are better suited to his toolkit as opposed to what he had to do in the dying days of that full Brazilian roster before. So it's I can only see the positives. Like there are ways that you can redeem players like Skulls and Cello from some of their past failed projects. And this would be a nice feel-good story for Imperial if they pull it off. If they pull it off, because they genuinely did look like a tactical team at one point, and then now it's just like they're lucky if they put together a proper site execute these days.
Speaking of desperately clawing for points, a desperate cope, a reach, a moonshot, whatever you want to call it, Robu, you have one underdog slot left to fill, and 3 teams I rejected twice. So, talking of a hard sell, make the case for one of them.
I've never been much of a salesman. I actually tried out that job for a day and a half, just calling people, I can't even remember what I was selling, but it felt bad calling people who didn't want to be sold anything to, and I feel exactly at the same point right now. All those bad memories coming up. I think Rare Atom is interesting. It's not my pick because they're maybe YouM3 can talk about them a little bit more. I just want to actually hear what's happening there, because what the hell? Case is a player coach now, and they're in flux. I will go with Fluxo. And okay, let's put on my salesman pants.
Let's do it.
They've got Art. Who's been in a top 5-ish team in Fury at that fun Counter-Strike, buying weird guns, making the game look fun, just going through smokes. It could work in this stage of the major. And also some of the players on their team have been traditionally good major performers, looking at Lukausi and Decenti. So yeah, I've got 3 pieces there. Kai is just going to be hated on by Maui Snake, I believe, and that's a good spot to be in. I didn't want to pick this team, and for these regional teams, I did a little bit of homework. I wanted to see when was the last time they beat a team that was not of their region, and for Fluxo, I looked at their games against non-American teams, so that's South American and North American teams, and it was a lot of losses. Losses to Astralis, Furia, G2, Tyloo, Eternal Fire, FlyQuest, Complexity, even Chinggis Warriors. And the last game they won against a team not of their region was over a year ago, 16th of October. They beat Aurora. And no, that was not the Zantares Woxic Aurora. That was the Russian Aurora who they beat closely 2-1. So yeah, that's again me telling my customers the truth. I'm not going to sell this at a high price, but if you want to get it for whatever, $1, anything you give me, I'll sell my Fluxo stocks to you. And yeah, I mean, Art, that's my final argument, Your Honor. Art.
Nice. The weird thing about this Fluxo team is like it's almost constructed of like secondary choices. If I'm thinking about the come up or what is supposed to be like a winning project, Insani Lukausi. Lukausi is the secondary in that responsibility. If I'm thinking Skulls and Zevi, like Zevi was the secondary in that conversation on that team. No Wayne Decenti, same thing. Kai actually was just kind of a scapegoat. Actually, he wasn't even really a secondary choice. They just brought him in to buy them some time. But they're not bad players. They're just not as good as some of the other pieces that other Brazilian rosters have been able to acquire. This is essentially it's kind of like a team of rejects from the South American region where, Art's calling style didn't work. Lucalzi didn't work on MIBR. These pieces haven't been able to find cohesion, and I'm supposed to believe that it all works together. It's a very weird dynamic because they actually have been winning games and they've been playing, trying to play more pack style and try and just like brute force. Well, not too dissimilar to a legacy, but I think there's a little bit more of an independent punch that one player will do in a round, like whether that's Lucauji, whether that's Decenti, sometimes it's Art that will just kind of go in sort of scouting, but almost self-sacrificially. It's a weird team. I'm not going to try and make any other arguments for him. They're a weird team that have just kind of been floating in their ranking, even with all the changes that they've been making, where they've had like really down periods and they're kind of hitting a little up one now, but I don't think that's going to help them much in this stage.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to sell everyone on Fluxo now. Just to amuse myself. I think I can do it. So Fluxo, you've described them as this team of second choices. Rejects. The all Brazilian rejects, we can say, just to play into that little joke. What they have, therefore, is a chip on their shoulder. We've seen that in domestic play. They've had upset wins. They've beaten teams who have the first choice, who have the player you really want. Red Canids had Cold Zero. MIBR have been signing internationally. They've got Insani, first choice, left, right, and center. They beat Imperial, who have Try, who everyone wanted. For like 3-4 years straight, everyone's wanted Try. They've still got those wins. They come into international waters. Somewhere, as Robbie pointed out, they haven't won since October of last year. I mean, we have to overlook just that one, like that NRG win, but technically domestic by major standards. So there's no reason to believe in them. And you're going to look at the bookies, you're going to see the pick'ems. Not a lot of people are going to believe in them. Hell, there's a really good-looking Frenchman with a British accent who put them in his 0-3 just yesterday. Whoever that guy is. Sub down below. All of that is setting the scene for a team that are going to be here and they're going to be pissed. And in terms of a team that shouldn't make anything of themselves, who should be overlooked, who should be downtrodden, and then come out of it, arise with something strange, something abstract, something only an artist would understand. This is the roster to do it. Art took a team to the top of the scene, playing a strange style nobody understood, nobody wanted, with players nobody had heard of. This is exactly the moment you should bet on him to do it again. Like, he's still playing weird. He still has players nobody wants. It's time to see what happens next, because last time it ended up with people emulating his style. It ended with people wanting to be the next Art, wanting to sign the next Art. This time it's a much smaller scale. It is only stage 1 of the major. A much easier masterpiece for him to paint. There's your Fluxo sell.
That's nice. That's nice. You were the manager and heard me talking and trying to sell Fluxo, and he wasn't cutting it. Let the manager on the phone. I've got this sale. I think you made it.
Hell, their coach is called Tacitus. If they don't have great tactics, leadership in battle, what was the point of naming yourself Tacitus, my friend?
Just as an extra chip on Art's shoulder as well. His ex-teammates are now just winning things.
True.
They are just winning things with a Fallen that's, actually having a Yukindar hard entry, not too dissimilar to how Art, I guess, wanted to call.
It's exactly correct.
Right, I think I'm last choice.
Pick. You are the...
And I get to pick a favorite. Oh, what a luxury.
But you've got to pick your poison here, because surely not every favorite makes it through, and if anyone's on the block to potentially miss, I've been told in my comments, these guys are the kind of teams you have to be careful of.
Yeah. And I think, if I've briefly scanned what other people are picking in their pick'ems and where the belief seems to be, and, I see variations of these three all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think just on principle, I can't pick Fnatic, because I think the Jacasmo signing with the way that the roles have worked out, is just kind of ass. It doesn't work.
It's karmically improper as well.
Yeah. God, do I really believe?
Just
Fine.
pick
You know what?
LynnVision, bro.
I'll just pick LynnVision. It was half and half. I was like, I think in my pick'ems I put M80, but
Yeah.
I don't mind being wrong for my pick'ems and right in this video. You know, I'll take a win on either side if I'm being honest. God, where do I even start with LynnVision? They're so much better than they've been playing recently. I think that's the only thing I can really characterize this as, because like Zacher, Starry, dude, Westmelon in the past few events has actually just not looked like himself either. But when this team clicks, it is so like these are a fun group to watch, because Zacher is very quick on the AWP. Starry is a little baity, but has like these explosive bursts, and then Westmelon, Emilia, Call Me Sue, whoever's taking the entry on that round, like they do get enough space that the rest of the team can clean up. This team are a little defaulty and not too inspirational. I'm not gonna hard sell it here, but they play cohesive enough Counter-Strike, and they play actually very well off each other, usually on CT sides. It's just there are a couple maps, like stop picking Dust 2. This LynnVision squad picked Dust 2 so much. Even when they were winning the map, there were blatant gaps in their CT side, and it's something that teams have finally picked up on and are fully abusing. So please stop picking that map. That's the only begging I'll do to this team, because in theory, and on the maps where they do look good, I think Nuke is actually one of them. They actually have very quick chemistry, very fast team play. It's the mid rounds and the late rounds where things get a little hairy for this squad, unfortunately. But their starting ideas and their protocols are actually very fine-tuned, and individually, these players can pop. So, yeah, LynnVision have to make it, really. They really should.
They should, yeah. They're up in the favourites, aren't they? I mean, Robu, I don't know how much LynnVision you've caught this year. They've played a couple of the sort of bigger events. What are your expectations for them?
Yeah, to be honest, not a team that I pay too much attention on, but whenever the major comes around, it's nice to see these type of teams. And in Austin, it was one of the biggest bright spots of the major. Their play and how far they made it. It was pretty surprising. And obviously, Emilia, just a huge personality out of nowhere. All the interviews with the Brazilian streamers and all the other interviews, it was just fun to watch, and it was fun to see a personality come out of that Asia region. Is he gonna put up those numbers? He was their best rated player in the Austin major. Probably not. I don't know. Something weird was just going on in Texas last May or June. So, but they've got good pieces. I like Zacher. I like Starry as a player, and in their region, just looking at the results, they've comfortably put themselves on top of that region with Tyloo. It's just LynnVision, Tyloo, and just everyone else, and that's why I didn't pick Rare Adam, for example, because there's clear distance between these type of teams. And well, one problem I also see is the map change that came in during this off season, because what little I saw from LynnVision, I thought their Anubis was pretty effective at least, and that's how they beat Bait in that deciding game on that decider map. And now it's replaced with Overpass, which they seemingly don't like very much. It's their worst map statistically. They're 1-3 in the last 3 months on Overpass. So yeah, the map pool didn't treat them. The map pool change rather didn't treat them too well.
Yeah, that's always a problem. You know, when you change map pools, teams are gonna have to adjust, and well, they haven't quite successfully. And you know, Yumi, you have your complaints about their Dust 2. That's another thing that just, it's a map you're gonna have to play most likely in this stage. Those BO1s, Dust 2 is going to be available against a lot of opponents. Mirage is going to be available. Inferno is going to be available. Those are the sorts of maps that end up cropping up time and time again. And sure, we usually end up with one of the other maps actually being the most plays in these sorts of stages. We do end up with like an Ancient on top of it, which ends up being the middle ground. But LynnVision for me are a scary team. When I did my Pick'ems video, I kind of had to acknowledge that. And it's, as much as the form isn't beautiful, it's not been a pretty showing from them. They're at least constructed in a way that I fear them rationally, is essentially the way I'd put it. It's like, sure, it's irrational to fear heights when you step onto a stepladder, but when I play against this team, it's like I'm dangling off a cliff. Like, it's a very realistic fear because they can pop off and they can destroy me. Like, Zaka can take over a map, Westmelon and Starry, and honestly, these riflers who are much, underappreciated, and call me soon Amelia, can be scary. Like, we've seen that one pop-off run, but also just in general, they've had moments where they've made magic. They've hit the entries that you're not supposed to, open rounds up in ways they're not expecting, and all of a sudden, damn, you're just getting run over by LynnVision because the role players have also stepped up. They're scary 1 through 5 in that sense. And as far as the Asian scene goes, they probably have the best chance of making like sort of like a 3-0 in this pool. It just has to kind of all work out for them. And it hasn't recently, but the chances are there. They have faced a lot tougher international competition than just generically international competition. They've had to play against the likes of Mongols and G2. They've played multiple series against 3D Max. They played Vitality, Fury. Like, they've taken their lumps, right? They haven't just been eliminated from events. They've played top teams and lost. But they've had a few wins here and there that kind of reassure you. I think if you're a LynnVision believer, coming to this stage, they've had higher class wins than any of these opponents. So realistically, they're guaranteed to not go 0-3. The possibility of them going through is strong. I think, it has to come together in the right way. It's a big if for this team.
Yeah. And the opening matchup is fun, at least. They're going to play against FaZe, and that's a game FaZe could easily trip over and lose.
Yeah, they could, 100%. They could shoot themselves in the foot coming right out the gate with a loss to LynnVision, and it just all spirals from there.
Okay. So we've made all our picks. You said
earlier
you wanted to talk about Rare Atom just briefly.
Yeah, let's hear it. What's up with Rare Atom?
Well, they've signed Marek, who is
32-year-old talent.
Yeah, well, that's an angle. It is very curious because Rare Atom felt like they were in a weird, like a bad place. Like the signing of Tiger, very, very good. Lihang, Tiger, Child King, like if that is your core, good. That's actually that's a strong Chinese core that you can rely upon. Tiger's very flashy on the AWP. He's fun. And actually, if there is going to be an upset and Rare Atom somehow surprise at this stage, it will be because of him. Marek is a curious one because they basically went from Marek's kind of a coach and then kind of a player. And then he's been playing on Just Swing, which is like a mixed team in China. And they basically just brought him in and just said, okay, we're going to give you support roles. And is that enough to make the stars work? It's
Teacher, is he even the IGL?
I don't think so.
What the what?
As far as I'm aware, he's not the IGL.
He's a coach.
Yeah.
A manager. So this makes no sense to me.
Yeah. So I don't know if this was just a case of, Kaze didn't want to play. Also, I mean, he was shifted into rifling while Tiger was taking the AWP now. So maybe that's not what he wants to do, and so that's why he's moved into coaching roles. And they've just gone through the coaching staff and gone, okay, who's the most capable of us here? Marek, Zaytse, or Kaze. And if Kaze's not playing, then it's Marek. It is genuinely Marek, unfortunately. So it might just be a situation of circumstance, but it does make the team a little strange. They did almost beat LynnVision the other day. I'll put it that way. In the Perfect World Challenger series, they actually were in a position where they could have 2-0'd and beat LynnVision. They didn't do that in the end. I think it was 11-4 scoreline comeback or whatever.
Damn.
They didn't do that. But they did that with Marek. So take that for what you will.
They sure make some curious choices because for Rare Atom, they also brought in, it was a couple of years ago, but they brought in a couple of Finnish coaches as well. They brought in Twista and a lesser known assistant coach called Peku. So definitely some curious coaching decisions being made over there.
Yeah.
But can we touch upon some of these teams that we didn't pick?
Because we can go for it. If there's anyone you really like the sound of, or would like to talk about, go for it. You want to talk about Fnatic and their bad juju, or who do you like the sound of?
Yeah, I think Fnatic deserves at least a couple of words to be said about them, because to me they're almost in the same boat as NIP. Very very good PCs there. They came in as the last team, so to say, from the European region to make the major, winning that Fragadelphia. Did they play something after that? I think they did. Yeah, PGL Bucharest, but that's also one of those events that I don't want to make too much out of, because I think it just took so much mental energy to make it through that Fragadelphia and all the grind they had to do early on this season. And of course, my boy Blame F. We need to name this guy because he's also one of the best players of this stage, and I think he's gonna be able to farm. He's gonna be farming red canids in this starting match, and Jumbo is very good. I think Jumbo is what people wish that Wrinkle was, or something like that. Both Ukrainian operas, and right now Jumbo is playing better.
Yeah, he is. He's not too dissimilar, right? Like in terms of style a bit. He does take a few more risks than the meta might dictate, if I'm not going crazy.
I think, yeah, Wrinkle is for sure more aggressive, but Jumbo's just found a better level at this moment. Do you have Fnatic going through?
My pick'ems they might go click on that. I'm joking. At this point, if you've watched it, you've watched it. If you haven't, yes, I actually have them going through. Now I do have to acknowledge, like for me, there's. Yeah, I don't want them to be good. I've taken a very rational, like, separate my emotions from it. Do I think Fnatic will go through? Fnatic-wise, yes. I mean, my pick'ems look very different to this mess. Let's be clear. There's a very different format for a reason. But Fnatic they're just threatening in too many ways for me to not have them going through. Like, as much as I'm not really that big a fan of the Fear independent, like, leadership duo, like in terms of what they implement and their structure overall. Blame F will just win you rounds, almost independently. Jambo is a mega mechanical talent. And Jacasmo, I would like to actually, defend the idea that this is, this terrible role move. I don't think it's as good a role as good of a player for the role as Cypher was, but Jacasmo, prior to sort of his last few stints, when Passion UA were actually really good with Fear, he was more aggressive. Like he was more like lent upon to be on the openings, to be taking direct challenges, to be more of that sort of Cypher-esque player. Like he wasn't as much of a sort of trader closer that he might have looked when he stood in, firstly for Crims, but also on the more recent iterations of. It was still Passion UA he was on, but it was just a very different team. He could work out pretty nicely. So I don't think it's as crazy or dire a situation as far as roster construction, but it's just a weird spot in terms of how I feel about the team because of the Cypher removal that felt criminally underdeserved. Like in that best of 5, they need to win to make the major. Like he's up there. Like he's fragging out. He's helping them close and qualify. The fact he then doesn't get to play for it is a bit ridiculous. I think.
Yeah, I think it would have been a bit different if they signed, obviously not a donk, but a clear great talent. But now they just picked up their friend from Passion UA, which makes it optically look pretty bad.
Yeah, I think that's really my concern with it as well. Is that listen, I think Fnatic could make it through, and it will largely just be because Blame F carries them there. But Jacasmo substituting Crims's roles looked good.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense that he now is he's actually taken some of Crims's like support roles, and Crims is now getting set up for some of the fights more often now. And Blame F is also like Jacasmo's not entering. He's one of the top 2 sort of highest in opening attempts on T sides, but Blame F is taking a lot of entries these days. And that's really what's, scary about this team is that, yeah, Blame F from start to finish, like as a closer can win you the game, and as an opener can win you the game. I don't understand where Jacasmo slots into that equation at all. And for like optically from the outside, like Fnatic weren't doing well for a while, and then they bring in Jacasmo on substitution, and they had some good results sort of leading into that Fragadelphia. But they bring in Jacasmo, and it's like, we just needed more of what we had in Passion UA again to get that fire and that lightning back. And so, yeah, it does, optically seem like, oh, they've just picked up one of their boys. Which I'm not saying is necessarily bad. Like, in terms of, you want team chemistry, you want people to jump when you say jump. Having someone that you have demonstrated that with before in the past is the right way to approach things in a sense. But the only weapon on this team is Blame F. Like, Jambo can sometimes be good. Crims has actually been fairly serviceable as of late. But tactically, I wouldn't say Fnatic do anything too great. And, Jacasmo and Jambo and Fear, like, they often end up in, like, a deficit position. Like, that old Passion UA core actually seem more like a liability at times. But Blame F carries them through it. So that's the angle for me. It's like, it's only Blame F that I really, truly believe if Fnatic are going to impress, he's going to end up on, like, a 1.43 rating or something.
I think the BO3s, it's going to be Blame F dependent exclusively, but those BO1s, I've seen too much from Jambo in terms of takeover potential to not believe he can win them one. Like, I think he can just win them a BO1. Like, and that's going to be really important. Like, this is stage 1. Like, we aren't talking about a BO3 Swiss. We're pushing for that. Eventually, hopefully we get it. But as long as we're doing BO1 Chaos, a player like Jambo who can thrive in Chaos, like, he's got that really sharp twitch sort of flick style. Like I've said, a lot of young AWPers seem to be trying to do the same thing, but no one does it quite like he does, like in terms of being every gun's a scout. He's really, 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 like, quick. And so when things are messy, sloppy, best of one puggy, he can come through. And I think for that, in that sort of sense, they have more reliability than we'd expect from Fnatic, who are famously, in this sort of era, unreliable. Now, if they brought Chikazmo in for Crims, I think we'd be all singing from a different song sheet. I think someone might have even picked them in their favourites. We'd be thinking about them very differently. But instead, yeah, here we are. They don't get selected. I do have them in my pick'ems going through, off the back of what I've said, but they're just not a team everyone has a lot of goodwill for, in that sense. But okay, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Red Canids, M80. Wish we could have talked about you, but I am hungry. So here we are.
M80 are good. They could be 3-0. Who knows?
M80 are through on my pick'ems as well, for those of you who haven't watched it. So, you know what I mean? I thought the favourites were going to sweep this one. So getting to the underdogs was tough. But yeah, we took a shot at it. Thank you, Robu, for joining us and lending us your time.
Thanks for having me.
Fascinating to get your perspective on some of these teams. If you enjoyed, leave a like. Leave a comment to us your thoughts on any of our picks. Like, who did we mess up? Should we have picked Fnatic? Are they going to smash LynnVision? We'll find out pretty soon. Yeah. Become a member for more content, and it is also the best way to support the channel, so to be appreciated. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.